Did you know that some people in your life might be subtly draining your energy or causing you harm, even without you realizing it? In today's world, where toxic behaviors are often hidden behind charming facades, it's crucial to recognize the signs of truly harmful individuals. This video will explore 10 specific signs that you might be dealing with a truly evil person, and how Stoic wisdom can help you protect your peace and navigate these toxic relationships. These are insights I've personally tested and integrated into my own life, and they've helped me build stronger boundaries and a more resilient mindset. Grab your journal, get comfortable, and let's dive into these transformative insights. Stick around as I'll share actionable steps and personal stories to help you spot and handle harmful people with wisdom and grace. Without further ado, let's get started and uncover the secrets to identifying truly toxic individuals and protecting your inner peace. Number 1. They take pleasure in others' failures. This behavior stems from envy and insecurity. People who take pleasure in others' failures see your success as a threat. They may think that if you rise, it somehow diminishes their own worth. It's almost as if they're keeping score, and your wins feel like points against them. Instead of celebrating your achievements, they silently root for your downfall. And sometimes they go a step further by actively sabotaging your efforts, whether it's spreading rumors, giving bad advice, or creating obstacles that make it harder for you to succeed. From a Stoic perspective, this is a clear sign of a mind in turmoil. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Their joy in your missteps reflects a lack of control over their own thoughts and emotions. Instead of focusing on their own growth, they fixate on bringing others down. It's important to remember that their negativity is not about you. It's a projection of their own dissatisfaction with life. Let me share an example. Imagine working on a group project and you pour your heart into it. The moment you share the final results, someone in the group points out flaws, not to improve the work, but to diminish your contribution. They might laugh at mistakes, question your ideas, or even imply that you were just lucky if things went well. You may not see it immediately, but over time, their pattern becomes clear. They're not offering constructive feedback. They're trying to chip away at your confidence. So, how do we respond? Stoicism offers us a path. Instead of reacting with anger or frustration, we can focus on our inner fortitude. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." In this case, their craving for superiority over others reveals their poverty of spirit. By refusing to engage in their negativity, you protect your peace and keep your energy directed toward your own goals. You might also notice these individuals lurking when life throws you a curveball. Perhaps you've faced a setback, like losing a job or struggling in a relationship, and instead of offering support, they seem oddly content. They may even exaggerate your situation when talking to others, turning your challenges into gossip. Stoicism teaches us to view such people with compassion, not resentment. Epictetus reminds us, "When someone behaves badly toward you, remember that he is acting in accordance with his own understanding. Their joy in your struggles is a reflection of their flawed perspective, not a measure of your worth." Another scenario might involve subtle sabotage. Let's say you're training for a big event, perhaps a marathon or a competition, and someone close to you keeps discouraging you. They might say things like, "Are you sure you're ready for this? You don't want to embarrass yourself." Or worse, they might tempt you into actions that derail your progress, like skipping training or indulging in unhealthy habits. Their discouragement isn't always blatant, but it's consistent enough to make you doubt yourself. The Stoic approach here is to maintain focus on your goals and not let their actions influence your path. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." By staying committed to your values and aspirations, you not only rise above their negativity, but also set an example of resilience and integrity. Number 2. They emit a negative energy. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt a shift in the atmosphere, as if the air got heavier? Maybe you couldn't pinpoint why, but you just knew something was off. Then, as you spent more time around a certain person, it became clear. They seemed to carry a cloud of negativity wherever they went. Their presence alone could drain the energy from the room, leaving you feeling uneasy or even anxious. That's the power of the energy people emit, and those with truly negative energy have an uncanny ability to disrupt the harmony around them. Negative energy isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's in the subtle things: a sigh that feels loaded with judgment, a comment that seems innocent but leaves a sting, or even just the way they look at you. You might notice how their presence makes you question yourself or feel uncomfortable in your own skin. They may not say much, but their energy speaks volumes. From a Stoic perspective, this is a reminder of the power of perception. As Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you interpret it that matters." Recognizing this energy for what it is, a reflection of their internal state, helps you remain grounded. The Stoics would encourage us to guard our inner state in such situations. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Their negative energy doesn't have to affect you unless you allow it to. Picture yourself as a steady rock in the middle of a storm. Their negativity might swirl around you, but it doesn't have to move you. Negative energy often manifests in subtle but persistent ways. For instance, you might notice how this person thrives on gossip, turning every conversation into a critique of others. Or perhaps they're always playing the victim, recounting stories where they've been wronged without ever taking accountability. Being around them can feel like stepping into quicksand. The longer you stay, the harder it is to maintain your own positivity. In moments like these, Stoic wisdom teaches us to set boundaries, both emotional and physical. Epictetus said, "Keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." This doesn't mean avoiding every difficult person, but it does mean being mindful of how much energy you invest in these interactions. If someone's negativity is weighing on you, it's okay to limit your exposure or even politely excuse yourself from their company. Sometimes this negativity isn't directed at you, but still affects the environment. Imagine a friend who constantly complains about their circumstances, how unfair life is, how others have it better, how nothing ever goes their way. While you may empathize with their struggles, the unrelenting stream of pessimism can feel like a heavy weight on your shoulders. Stoicism teaches us to approach such situations with compassion, but also with discernment. Marcus Aurelius said, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." Listen if you can, but don't absorb their energy as your own. What's important to remember is that people emitting negative energy are often struggling internally. Their negativity is a reflection of their own unresolved issues, fears, or dissatisfaction. While Stoicism doesn't encourage us to judge or condemn them, it does remind us to protect our own peace. Practicing gratitude, mindfulness, and focusing on our own inner virtues can act as a shield against their energy. Number 3. They are chronic liars. One thing about chronic liars is how convincing they can be. Imagine someone telling you a detailed story about a vacation they never took. They describe the beaches, the food, and even the people they met. It sounds so vivid that you'd never think to question it. Later, you find out it was all fabricated. The worst part, they didn't gain anything from the lie. It was purely to impress or manipulate. For someone rooted in Stoic principles, this kind of dishonesty is unsettling because it runs counter to the virtue of truthfulness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This is a reminder to value honesty, even when others don't. Chronic liars are often skilled at justifying their behavior. They might say things like, "I didn't want to hurt anyone," or "It's not a big deal." But over time, their lies can cause serious harm. Think about trusting someone with important information, only to realize later that they twisted your words to serve their agenda. For instance, you might confide in someone about a personal struggle, and they turn around and use it as gossip to gain sympathy or attention. That betrayal stings deeply because it violates the trust you placed in them. Stoicism offers guidance in how to respond to such situations. Epictetus taught that while we cannot control others' actions, we can control our reactions. When dealing with chronic liars, it's important to protect your inner peace. Recognize their behavior for what it is, a sign of their own insecurity or lack of integrity, and don't allow it to derail your values. As Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." Another aspect of chronic lying is how it can make you question your own instincts. You may start to wonder if you're overreacting or misjudging them. This self-doubt is exactly what liars rely on to maintain control. They thrive in the gray areas where facts are blurred and reality is hard to pin down. Stoicism teaches us to trust our reason and judgment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. Stay true to what you know to be right, even when their lies make you question everything." Dealing with chronic liars also means setting boundaries. You might have to limit how much personal information you share with them, or avoid situations where their lies could directly harm you. For instance, if you've been burned by someone spreading false rumors about you, it's okay to distance yourself from them. Stoicism doesn't mean enduring unnecessary harm. As Epictetus advised, the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. Protecting your peace and choosing your company wisely is an act of self-respect. Number 4, they pretend to be perfect. Some people go to extraordinary lengths to create the illusion that they're flawless. They never admit to mistakes, and when things go wrong, they are quick to shift the blame elsewhere. To them, admitting imperfection feels like weakness. This facade of perfection might seem impressive at first, but over time, it becomes exhausting to be around someone who constantly projects an air of superiority while refusing to acknowledge their humanity. One clear sign of this behavior is their reluctance to accept responsibility for their actions. Imagine working on a team project where something didn't go as planned. Instead of reflecting on what could have been done better, they deflect. Perhaps they blame the tools, the timing, or even you, but never themselves. In their world, accountability is for everyone else. Stoicism teaches us that strength lies in self-awareness and accountability. Marcus Aurelius said, "If anyone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change. I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone." The courage to admit mistakes is what separates the truly strong from those who merely pretend. Their illusion of perfection often extends to their personal life as well. On social media, for instance, they might present an idealized version of themselves, flawless photos, luxurious lifestyles, and carefully curated moments of joy. While there's nothing wrong with sharing highlights, these individuals use it as a tool to maintain the illusion of perfection. Behind the scenes, however, their relationships might be fraught with tension, or their confidence might be deeply fragile. The Stoics would remind us not to be deceived by appearances. Epictetus taught, "Appearances are of four kinds. Things either are as they appear, or they neither are nor appear to be, or they are and do not appear to be, or they are not and yet appear to be." Learning to discern reality from the facade protects us from getting caught up in their performance. Their behavior often includes subtle ways of putting others down to elevate themselves. For instance, they might constantly critique others' work, choices, or lifestyles, always positioning themselves as the standard of excellence. Imagine sharing a personal accomplishment only to have them say, "Well, that's great, but I would have done it this way," as if their way is inherently superior. Over time, these interactions can make you feel like you're always falling short. Stoicism reminds us not to measure ourselves by others' standards. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't be overheard complaining, not even to yourself." Instead of internalizing their critiques, focus on your own growth and values. Another hallmark of someone pretending to be perfect is their need to control narratives. They're often the first to share their version of events, ensuring they come out looking blameless. For example, in a disagreement, they might quickly tell others their side of the story, framing themselves as the victim or hero before you've even had a chance to explain. This tactic ensures they maintain their perfect image, even at the cost of others. In such moments, Stoic wisdom advises us to remain calm and let the truth reveal itself over time. As Seneca said, "Time discovers truth." The more they try to manipulate perceptions, the more apparent their dishonesty becomes. Their unwillingness to show vulnerability is another clear sign. Vulnerability requires courage. It means admitting you don't have all the answers or that you've made a mistake. For someone pretending to be perfect, this is unthinkable. They'll avoid difficult conversations, downplay their struggles, and refuse to ask for help, all to maintain their flawless image. But Stoicism celebrates vulnerability as a strength. Epictetus taught, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." By admitting our limitations, we open ourselves to growth and connection, something those who pretend to be perfect often miss out on. Number 5. They hide their true selves. Some people are like shapeshifters, constantly changing their behavior depending on who they're with or what they want. On the surface, they might seem adaptable or charming, but underneath it all, they're hiding who they really are. They wear masks, not out of necessity, but as a way to manipulate situations or protect their ego. It's exhausting to deal with someone like this because you never know who you're really interacting with, the person they show you or the person they truly are. One way this shows up is through their constant reinvention of stories. For example, they might tell one version of a situation to you and a completely different version to someone else. It's not just exaggeration, it's a deliberate attempt to control how others see them. Over time, you notice inconsistencies in what they say, but by then, they've created so many layers of falsehoods that unraveling the truth feels impossible. Epictetus reminds us, appearances are deceptive and so are most judgments. Instead of getting caught up in their web of contradictions, focus on what's verifiable and let go of the rest. These individuals often avoid deep, meaningful conversations because they know the more you get to know them, the more cracks you'll see in their facade. They might keep interactions light or steer discussions away from themselves, ensuring their true nature stays hidden. Picture someone who always talks about surface-level topics like work gossip, trends, or other people's lives, but clams up when the conversation turns personal. The Stoics valued self-reflection and encouraged living authentically. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be content with what you are, and wish not change, nor dread your last day, nor long for it." True peace comes from being honest with yourself, a concept foreign to those who hide their true selves. Their masks also allow them to blend seamlessly into different social circles, but this adaptability often feels hollow. Imagine meeting someone who seems perfect in every setting. They're polite, agreeable, and always say the right things. At first it's impressive, but eventually it starts to feel calculated, as if they're playing a role rather than being genuine. The Stoics teach us to seek authenticity, both in ourselves and others. Seneca wrote, "The greatest hindrance to living is expectancy, which depends on tomorrow and wastes today." When someone constantly shifts their persona, they're not truly living, they're performing. This behavior can be especially damaging in relationships. Someone hiding their true self might say all the right things to gain your trust, but over time, their actions reveal a different story. For instance, they might present themselves as supportive and understanding, but when challenges arise, their patience disappears and their true priorities become clear. This duplicity can leave you feeling confused and betrayed. Stoicism encourages us to judge people by their actions, not just their words. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Pay attention to how someone behaves over time, not just the persona they project. They also have a habit of mirroring others to gain acceptance. For example, they might adopt your interests, mimic your mannerisms, or agree with everything you say to appear likable. While it can feel flattering at first, it eventually feels unsettling because it lacks sincerity. Stoicism reminds us that true connection comes from being real, not from pretending to be someone else. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." Life is too short for superficial connections built on deception. Number 6. They manipulate without guilt. Manipulation is one of the most unsettling traits someone can possess. It's not just the act of persuading others to do something, it's the calculated way manipulators twist emotions, situations, and even perceptions to get what they want. What makes it so insidious is that manipulators often do this without a shred of remorse. They don't care who gets hurt, as long as their goals are achieved. For those of us striving to live authentically and ethically, encountering someone like this can feel disorienting and exhausting. Manipulators often rely on subtlety. Imagine someone who seems to always get their way, but when you look closer, you realize they've achieved this by making others feel guilty or responsible for their desires. For instance, they might say something like, "If you really cared about me, you'd do this," or "I guess I'll just figure it out on my own." It's not a direct demand, but it creates an emotional pressure that's hard to ignore. Stoicism offers a valuable perspective here. Epictetus reminds us, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Recognizing this manipulation allows you to regain your sense of freedom and choose your actions deliberately rather than being driven by guilt. Another tactic manipulators use is playing the victim. They present themselves as helpless or wronged to evoke sympathy and get others to act on their behalf. For example, they might recount a one-sided story about a conflict, painting themselves as completely innocent while exaggerating the faults of others. This draws people in, making them feel obligated to take the manipulator's side. From a Stoic standpoint, it's important to resist the urge to react emotionally to these stories. Marcus Aurelius advised, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Pause. Evaluate the situation objectively and don't let their dramatics sway your judgment. Manipulators also excel at exploiting trust. They might start by acting overly supportive or generous, making you feel like they're a true ally. But over time, they begin to use this trust to their advantage. Perhaps they ask for favors that go beyond what's reasonable or expect you to bend your boundaries because you owe them. For example, someone might remind you of a time they helped you, only to use that as leverage to push you into doing something you're uncomfortable with. Stoicism teaches us to set firm boundaries rooted in self-respect. Seneca said, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. Surround yourself with people who value mutual respect rather than manipulation." Gaslighting is another favorite tool of manipulators. They make you question your own perceptions and memories, leaving you feeling confused and uncertain. For instance, you might confront them about something they said, and they respond with, "I never said that," or "You're just imagining things." This tactic keeps you off balance and makes it easier for them to control the narrative. Stoicism encourages us to trust our reason and remain grounded in what we know to be true. Epictetus said, "The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control." Focus on what you can verify and don't let their attempts to distort reality shake your confidence. Sometimes manipulators use flattery as a weapon. They'll shower you with praise and make you feel valued, only to turn around and ask for something in return. The compliments aren't genuine, they're calculated to lower your guard. For instance, someone might tell you how talented you are, only to follow it up with a request for help on a project they don't actually intend to contribute to. Stoicism teaches us to view praise and criticism with equal detachment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Don't let their flattering words influence you to act against your better judgment. Number 7. They feel entitled to everything. Some people walk through life as if the world owes them something. They believe they deserve the best of everything without putting in the effort or considering what's fair to others. This sense of entitlement can show up in small, everyday interactions or larger, more dramatic ways. What's troubling is not just their demands, but the complete lack of gratitude or awareness of how their behavior affects those around them. They act as if they're the center of the universe, and everyone else is merely a supporting character in their story. You might notice this entitlement in how they approach relationships. For example, they expect you to drop everything for them, but when you need their help, they're suddenly too busy or unavailable. It's as if their needs always outweigh yours. If you don't comply, they might act offended or try to guilt you, as if you're the one being unreasonable. Stoicism reminds us that relationships should be built on mutual respect and fairness. Seneca said, "We are waves of the same sea, leaves of the same tree, flowers of the same garden." True connection comes from recognizing equality, not exploiting others for personal gain. In a professional setting, entitlement can be even more glaring. Imagine working with someone who constantly demands credit for work they didn't do or expects special treatment just because of their title or connections. They might complain about not getting promotions or rewards while ignoring the effort others put in. This behavior creates tension and resentment because it undermines the shared effort that drives success. Stoicism teaches us to focus on our own contributions and not get caught up in comparisons. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Don't aspire to be on the best-dressed list. Aspire to be a person of virtue. Your worth is determined by your actions, not by the recognition others demand for themselves." Entitled people also tend to view rules and boundaries as obstacles rather than guidelines. For instance, they might cut in line, expect favors without reciprocation, or disregard policies that everyone else follows. To them, rules are for other people, not for someone as special as they believe themselves to be. This disregard for fairness can be infuriating, but Stoicism offers a way to handle it. Epictetus taught, "There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will. While you can't control their sense of entitlement, you can choose how much power you let it have over your peace of mind." Their entitlement often comes with double standards. For example, they might demand forgiveness for their mistakes, but be unwilling to forgive others. Or they expect unwavering loyalty while offering none in return. This hypocrisy can leave you feeling frustrated and taken advantage of. Stoicism encourages us to rise above such behaviors by focusing on our own integrity. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Don't let their double standards pull you into the same cycle of selfishness and blame. Another hallmark of entitled people is their tendency to overreact when they don't get what they want. For example, imagine they ask for a favor that you can't fulfill. Instead of understanding your situation, they might lash out, sulk, or make you feel as though you've wronged them. It's as if the mere idea of being told no is unbearable for them. Stoic philosophy teaches us to maintain our composure in the face of such reactions. Seneca said, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." Stay calm, set boundaries, and don't let their tantrums dictate your decisions. Entitled individuals also lack gratitude, which is perhaps the most telling sign of their mindset. Even when they receive help or benefits, they treat it as something they were owed rather than a gesture of kindness. For instance, you might go out of your way to support them, and instead of thanking you, they barely acknowledge your effort or even expect more from you. Stoicism places immense value on gratitude as a key to happiness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not indulge in dreams of having what you do not have, but reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess." Practicing gratitude not only helps you appreciate life, but also shields you from the entitlement of others. Number 8. They help only when it benefits them. Some people only offer help when there's something in it for them. At first it can be hard to notice, but over time you start to see a pattern. They'll step in when there's a clear personal gain, but when you need support, they suddenly become too busy or unavailable. It's as if their acts of kindness are just transactions. They help because it enhances their image, benefits them directly, or puts them in a position of power. This kind of self-interest can feel like a betrayal, especially when you realize that your well-being is only valuable to them when it serves their own goals. For instance, you might lend a hand to someone in need, only to find that when you're the one going through a tough time, they're nowhere to be found. They might offer excuses or just ignore your requests for help. It becomes clear that their help was more about building a favor bank for themselves than about genuine kindness. Stoicism teaches us to act with integrity, regardless of whether there's a benefit to us. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "Let not your mind run on what you lack as much as on what you have." True help comes from a place of selflessness, not self-interest. This transactional approach to helping others can extend to more subtle ways of manipulating situations. They might offer advice that seems helpful, but it's always with the caveat that you owe them something in return. For example, they might help you with a small task at work, but later expect you to cover for them or do something in exchange. Stoics value assistance that comes without strings attached. As Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Their help is an attempt to control the situation, but your power lies in choosing not to engage in that exchange. It's easy to get frustrated or even angry when you realize you're dealing with someone who only helps when it benefits them. But Stoicism encourages us to maintain our inner peace, no matter how selfish others might be. Instead of harboring resentment, focus on cultivating a generous spirit yourself, without the need for anything in return. Seneca wrote, "No man can live happily who has regard to himself alone and transforms everything into a question of his own utility." Helping others is an opportunity to practice virtue, not a transaction to get something in return. Their behavior often creates a sense of imbalance in relationships. You may feel like you're constantly giving while they take, without ever offering anything that doesn't benefit them. For example, they might enjoy the perks of being your friend, but when it's time to offer support, they disappear. This imbalance can drain you emotionally, especially if you're someone who values mutual respect and reciprocity. In these situations, the Stoic approach would be to focus on what you can control, your own actions and responses, while accepting that some people may never offer the same level of kindness. Over time, this kind of behavior can lead you to reevaluate your relationships. If you're always the one giving and they're only helping when there's something in it for them, it's important to recognize the dynamic and protect your energy. Stoicism teaches us to protect our peace and not allow others to dictate the terms of our relationships. As Marcus Aurelius put it, when you have the opportunity to benefit another person, do so with sincerity and without expecting anything in return. True generosity comes from a place of inner strength, not out of a desire for reciprocity. Number 9. They have many enemies. People who have a trail of enemies in their wake often show us the consequences of their actions, even if they don't realize it. These individuals may present themselves as charming and friendly on the surface, but underneath, they leave a path of damaged relationships, unspoken resentments, and unresolved conflicts. They may go on about how others have wronged them, or how they had to cut people off due to misunderstandings. But the truth is, when you consistently have problems with so many different people, the common denominator is usually you. These individuals often live in a world of blame. They accuse others of betrayal, but they never stop to ask why things keep falling apart around them. A friend of mine had someone in their life who was always pointing fingers at others for not understanding or supporting them, but when you looked closely, it was their own actions that were at the root of most conflicts. This person's inability to accept responsibility for their own part in things was a constant source of tension. Stoicism teaches us to take full responsibility for our actions, no matter how difficult it may be. As Epictetus said, we are not disturbed by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens to us. The moment we shift the focus to our own behavior, we regain control and clarity. People who have many enemies also tend to speak poorly about those they've fallen out with. Instead of reflecting on the situation, they trash-talk former friends, colleagues, or acquaintances. For example, you might hear someone constantly recounting how they've been wronged by every person they've ever worked with, or how no one ever understands them. This constant narrative of being the victim reflects a refusal to see things from other perspectives, and it often comes at the expense of their own growth. Stoicism reminds us to remain calm and composed in these situations. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Instead of engaging in their petty squabbles, take the higher road by practicing empathy and understanding, even if you don't agree with the person's behavior. One of the hardest things to do is to watch someone behave in a way that causes constant conflict and then act surprised when they're isolated or surrounded by enemies. Their tendency to burn bridges can eventually lead to loneliness, and they may try to convince themselves that it's everyone else's fault. But in truth, their lack of self-reflection and their refusal to take responsibility for their actions are what perpetuate the cycle. In Stoicism, we are taught to focus on what is in our control, particularly our own actions. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." It's easy to get caught up in someone else's narrative, but it's important to stay grounded in your own truth and not get lost in the drama they create. These individuals often fail to learn from their mistakes. They repeat the same patterns, burning bridges, speaking ill of others, and distancing themselves from anyone who challenges their behavior. And because they don't learn from past conflicts, they're doomed to repeat them. A family member of mine went through cycles of friend groups, only to end up alone time and time again. Every time they'd start a new relationship, whether professional or personal, the cycle would repeat. They'd create tension, become defensive, and then cut ties, convinced that everyone else was to blame. Stoicism teaches us that growth comes from self-examination, not from avoiding uncomfortable truths. As Epictetus said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." By confronting our own mistakes, we can break free from cycles of conflict and start building healthier, more constructive relationships. Number 10. They thrive on hate. There are some people who seem to live in a constant state of anger and resentment. It's as if hatred fuels them, and without it, they wouldn't know who they are. These individuals often thrive in environments where negativity is rampant. They focus on flaws, criticize others endlessly, and can't seem to find anything good to say about anyone. Their minds are consumed by the faults and wrongs of others, and they take pride in pointing out imperfections wherever they see them. It's a toxic energy that can quickly spread, and it can leave you feeling drained if you're not careful. For instance, someone in your circle might always have something bad to say about the people around them. Whether it's a neighbor, co-worker, or even a distant relative, they're quick to list all the reasons why someone is wrong or deserving of criticism. It's exhausting to be around because every conversation turns into an opportunity for them to air grievances rather than to connect or build something positive. Stoicism teaches us to stay detached from unnecessary negativity. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." When dealing with people who thrive on hate, it's important to maintain your own composure and not let their anger cloud your thoughts or actions. What's interesting about people who thrive on hate is that they often have a distorted view of the world. They focus on what's wrong with others, constantly finding fault and reinforcing their own bitterness. Instead of seeing the world with a sense of possibility or growth, they see it as a battleground where they're perpetually at war. It's like their internal lens is permanently set to critical, and nothing ever looks right through it. This mindset can make them feel like they're always right, which makes it harder for them to ever admit mistakes or see things from a different perspective. Stoic philosophy urges us to adopt a mindset of improvement and focus on what is within our control. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. By choosing to rise above their hate, you focus your energy on growing and responding to the world with wisdom rather than bitterness. Their criticism can often feel like a form of self-defense. When you criticize others constantly, it can create a shield that protects them from confronting their own flaws. They may be projecting their own insecurities and unhappiness onto the people around them. For example, someone might belittle others to feel better about themselves. They tear down what they can't build up. Stoicism teaches us to look inward rather than outward for validation. Marcus Aurelius said, The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. When you encounter someone who thrives on hate, remember that their negativity says more about their inner turmoil than it does about you. You don't need to take it personally or let it affect your inner peace. People who thrive on hate also tend to be pessimists. They expect the worst in people, situations, and the world around them. When something goes wrong, their first reaction is usually anger, followed by blame. They don't seek to understand or find solutions. Instead, they focus on the flaws and faults they perceive. It's a draining mindset to be around, especially because they see every setback as an opportunity to complain rather than to learn or grow. Stoicism teaches us that setbacks are part of life and are opportunities for growth. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Rather than being consumed by negativity, use challenges as chances to grow stronger and more resilient." What's even more concerning is that people who thrive on hate often don't see anything wrong with it. They justify their anger as righteousness, thinking they're entitled to feel and express hatred toward others. This can be particularly dangerous because they might try to drag others into their mindset, encouraging you to be as critical and resentful as they are. When this happens, it's important to remember the Stoic practice of recognizing what you can control and letting go of what you can't. Epictetus reminded us, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." In situations like these, the key is not to let their hate consume you. Respond with kindness, understanding, and a focus on your own path. Over time, the constant focus on hate can wear down relationships. People who thrive on negativity often struggle to maintain genuine, healthy connections because their bitterness creates a barrier between them and others. They might sabotage friendships or work relationships by spreading negativity or making everything about what's wrong. In these cases, it's crucial to protect your own peace and set boundaries. Stoicism teaches us that we can't control others, but we can control how much energy we give to them. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." By choosing to limit your exposure to negativity, you protect your own well-being. As we wrap up today's journey through the signs of toxic behavior, remember that the power to rise above negativity and protect your peace lies within you. By focusing on your own growth and staying true to Stoic wisdom, you can navigate even the most challenging relationships with grace and strength. Thank you for being a part of Stoic Journal and for taking the time to reflect and grow with us. If you found value in this video, make sure to check out one of the suggested videos on the screen. Keep building your inner resilience, and I'll see you in the next one.